Hello and welcome back, my body language buddies. Today's big question is, what does David Dobrik's body language reveal about his apology on the recent accusations of being involved in a non-consensual threesome? Or, let's be clear, rape. In this video, I'm going to dissect the body language signals of not only his apology video, but also of related videos like this one, and this one, and this one too. Just in case you don't know, Dobrik is a news-based YouTuber, comedian, and podcaster of Slovak nationality. He found early success in the video sharing platform Vine before starting his vlog on his YouTube channel in 2015. Dobrik is known by being the leader of popular YouTube ensemble The Vlog Squad, which features prominently in his vlogs and comprises rotating selections of his friend group. A woman is accusing Dom Siglatis, aka Dirty Dom from The Vlog Squad, of rape. She said that David Dobrik was present that night, filmed her, and used the footage for a threesome plot in his vlog. The accuser said that Vlog Squad members gave her and her college friends alcohol because they were under the legal drinking age at the time and couldn't buy it themselves. Trisha Paytas, who was there that night, has made a statement that she witnessed this. Now, if this is your first time here, my channel is all about body language and persuasion. You can ask any questions or suggest any analysis in the comments. And if you're coming back, thank you for sharing this body language adventure with me. I know I haven't uploaded recently and that's absolutely my fault. But I want to make it up to you by starting today a schedule of 2 episodes a week, most likely on Tuesdays and Fridays. Just to be sure, check the info on my channel's homepage banner for updated time. Before we start, remember that I've got a really nice compilation of 100 body language tips in a very convenient free PDF that you can download in the link right in the description. In this video, you will learn how to spot certain psychopathic gestures and attitudes, the eye movements that signal a contradiction, and one simple question that you can ask to disarm a false apology. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and I want you to uncover the secrets that people try to hide from you. In November 2018, a group of 7 college students were on their way to meet Dobrik, but the accuser, Laura, which is not her real name, didn't know who he was. Earlier that day, some of the students had begun chatting over Instagram with a Vlog Squad member who went by the name Dirty Dom. Dom, whose real name is Dominicus Siglatis, said he wanted to hook up with them and some of Laura's friends were interested. The students who had watched Dobrik's videos knew Siglatis played a character in the vlogs who was a sex addict. They didn't know where the character started and ended and weren't sure whether they were actually supposed to be having sex with him that night. Laura didn't know what to expect and actually couldn't have predicted what would happen that evening. Laura accused Siglatis of rape by engaging in sexual activity with her that night while she was so incapacitated by alcohol that she could not consent. She says members of the Vlog Squad supplied alcohol to her and her friends who were too young to buy it themselves. Laura says she can't remember everything that happened that night because she says she was too drunk to consent. Because she blacked out, she remembers Siglatis trapping her in his room. Now, that was already off the rails, but when Dobrik filmed Laura at the apartment and as she entered Siglatis' bedroom with him, he edited and uploaded the footage as a threesome plot a few days later in a vlog called She Should Not Have Played With Fire. Before it was deleted at Laura's request, it was viewed 5 million times. But anyway, in that video you can see members of the Vlog Squad peeking into the room where the rape was supposedly to be happening at that moment. You can spot faces of real delight and even psychopathic gestures, as in smiles that are absolutely broad with the wide upper area of the eyes showing. That's actual euphoria and arousal. It wouldn't be too hard to assume that they were intoxicated at that moment because there was absolutely no regard for what was happening to the women inside. All of those are real smiles. They're really proud of what was going on in there, and that's a characteristic of predatory behavior. Now there's a very easy question. If they were capable of doing something like this, laughing, recording it, don't you think this could be the escalation of other similar episodes? Because psychopaths begin testing the waters to see how far they can go. That way they can start to learn what kind of women will be ideal victims, how to set up the situation, how to offer alcohol as a means of not caring if it's not consensual. In the video we can also watch Siglaitis drenched in sweat, bragging about what he's just done, laughing broadly and openly showing his neck. That is a gesture of being absolutely defiant and accomplished of forcing a woman to have sex with him. He raises his arms in the air. That is also a show-off gesture, another gesture of accomplishment. There's also a shot where you can clearly see that even if he has a strong light upon his face, his pupils are not contracted but instead fully dilated. Another sign that he was heavily intoxicated at that moment. That face expression is of absolute delight and pleasure, and you have to consider that we have to take into account not only his body language expression, but also the fact of all the Vlog Squad members that were around him, condoning, cheering his attitude and make sure they got everything on video. It makes you wonder really, what kind of people is capable of not only doing this, but consciously and with absolute premeditation edit this footage and actually uploading it to the internet. When you study psychopaths, you must remember that they usually try to cover their tracks. What you actually see about them, what is so disturbing about them, the disturbing things that you get to see are at the tip of the iceberg. That's why the statement made by Dobrik's attorney is cynical. Anyone who knows him knows he does not condone misconduct in any form. But how can people actually know someone? Not by what they say, not by what they claim, but by their actions. And what do their actions show? What are they so proud of that they want to show it to the public? They even made a joke about having a threesome and they all were going to jail.
John just had a threesome and I think we're all going to jail. Oh, man.
The same broad laugh, absolute delight, and the chest puff of being proud and happy of what they did. Vlog participants provide consent before anything is posted. Oh, that's interesting. How do they provide that consent? By text message? Email? A signed document? If there are no consent receipts, then there was never consent in the first place. And he adds, whenever consent is retracted, posts are removed. Any insinuation of wrongdoing is inaccurate and defamatory. Do you think this is insinuation of wrongdoing? Do you think that making jokes about smell my finger after forcing someone to have sex is funny? And of course, Dobrik was into all this. He even claims in a podcast that Siglaitis could not have bragging rights about that threesome unless they actually saw it with their own eyes.
And it was very exciting for him. So
well, you guys sent like 3 of your friends in to confirm it was happening.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he didn't have sex with them unless we saw it with our own eyes. So
the fact that he's talking freely about what happened is a sign that he is not afraid to get away with what he wants. Now, it's interesting to see that his body language is a bit insecure, with his right hand limp over his crossed legs. There's something that tells him that this was wrong, but again, being absolutely unaccountable and empowered by his audience and his ego, he not only condoned it, but used it for more YouTube fame. In late February, when Siglaitis was asked about Laura's story, he said that he didn't want to talk about the Vlog Squad, but would speak to his own achievements. Reached again in early March about the allegations, he declined to comment. The attorney then released a statement that says, David will be addressing his community directly. So that's what his apology video was for. Now, this apology video. Where should I start? Well, the first thing that struck me about Dobrik's apology is that it was published on a channel that is not currently his main channel. It's one that he used to upload his podcast on. And these are the kind of signals that go beyond words and beyond body language. From the start, he's trying in one way or another to hide these words from the actual spotlight. That's the first signal that he's not confident with what he's saying or that he's not being clear enough about it. Why couldn't he just upload it to his main channel? Reading body language is always about trying to spot what is in sync and what are contradictions. And yes, everyone noticed that the biggest contradiction comes from the title of the video itself. Let's talk. And the comments are turned off and there's no way to see likes and dislikes. So it's not much like let's talk, but instead hear me out. Now, I've made a few analyses of apology videos, and I remember either Micah Stauffer or Jeffree Star, and at least they made the effort of talking for more than 5 minutes. Even if Stauffer's video was more edited than a Cardi B clip, and Star's ended as a product pitch for his own makeup line. But 2 minutes and a half? Seriously? That must be a new record. At least we can thank him for being succinct. The first impression that you should always spot when you're doing a body language analysis is the setting. Where are they? What are their surroundings? What did they choose as a background? In this case, maybe it was convenient for Dobrik to record this clip while being on set. But he chose not to be behind the usual desk where he always sits, but instead in the guest spot. Whether this was intentional or not, the things that you see in the background are always going to prime your perception of the person. That's why I always suggest that you pay attention about your background for your Zoom calls. It becomes part of your nonverbal message, and in this case, you have many items that were already on set but work very well if you want to send a message of being innocent. For example, the Nickelodeon logo, some trophies that signal achievements, the general coach and setting is white, what is also the color of innocence. You have a bust of Groot that is one of the purest spirited characters of the Marvel Universe, a Groot photo that looks kind of a family, and the general pattern of the background is an inverted triangle, being the inverted triangle a symbol for motherhood and our feminine side. And speaking of inverted triangles in the Marvel Universe, you remember in Iron Man 2 that when Tony creates his new arc reactor element, the design is, yes, an inverted triangle. Notice that at the start of the movie he has an ego problem and it's really reckless in many ways. The change to an inverted triangle in his arc reactor is a symbol of balancing his personality with his feminine side. So in this case, Dobrik's background helps convey the idea that he's in touch with his feminine side, and in turn it makes him look less aggressive and less capable of doing reckless things. Right from the start and all along the video, you notice that he has his left thumb between his fingers while he's holding the microphone. Our thumbs represent our ego, and at that moment that gesture signals that he's trying to control it. That his ego is not aligned with what he's doing at the moment. This is not a part of his baseline or his regular body language expressions because he doesn't do it in other clips in the same setting. That's how you know that this is an outlier gesture, and as such, it responds to an emotional reaction. I always mention two analogies when I talk about body language. First, body language is like any other language in the sense that you have vocabulary whose meaning can change depending on context. And of course, you can't get the meaning of a whole paragraph with just a single word. You need to read the whole paragraph to understand it. But the act of reading body language is more like counting cards in blackjack. You count the gestures that are in sync or support what the people is saying and count the clues of the seed as they begin to stack, and this is a dynamic process. In this case, we have just an apology video that is absolutely controlled by Dobrik. But if this was an interview, we could spot those signals in real time. And upon catching the seed clues, we could ask questions about those points that make him feel uncomfortable. And we know that he feels uncomfortable because at that first frame he has his right hand between his legs. That is a gesture of protection, even if it's not going to appear inside the frame. Any gesture that tries to cover or protect our body is usually an emotional reaction of defensiveness and that the person feels threatened. This is not something static, but instead it changes over time. You just ask yourself a simple question. Is the person open, or instead they're protecting themselves? Also, what are they wearing? Yes, it's commonplace that people wear white for apology videos, but instead he was wearing a black hoodie. My suspicion is that he had already recorded this video at least 2 days before publishing it, because this was the exact same hoodie that he wore in the last episode before this apology. So he was recording the episode and took some time off to record 2 minutes and a half of this statement. Why take 2 days to publish it? Very simple explanation. He needs the last episode to take its time on air, at least 2 days, so sponsors get their value back. If he releases the apology too close to a sponsor video, it would steal traffic from it, and his sponsors could get pissed. Well, his sponsors are already pissed, by the way. He shows a slight elbow reaction right at the start, and that's a totally unnecessary gesture. Maybe it's an emotional reaction, but to be sure, I watched a few of his other videos to have a better assessment of his baseline. He shows a lot of these superficial gestures and movements that look involuntary. Maybe he has some attention deficit, maybe some hyperactivity, but in many ways, sitting completely still is not something natural to him. So after you do some research in your subject, you can have a better guess at what his natural way of communication is. Maybe most people do these kind of movements and that's an emotional reaction to them. And maybe Dobrik is the opposite manifestation of this. Those movements are normal to him and instead not moving is the emotional reaction. I stress this feature of body language because you cannot analyze every person the same way. You should always have 2 or 3 hypotheses about what's going on. Like maybe he's innocent and is trying to prove it, or he's guilty and trying to hide it, or maybe it's something more complex than that. Another main clue of body language that you should be aware of at all times are change in posture. Notice that at the start of the video he assumes a posture of head back, in which he pulls his head back trying to get away from the camera, to get away from the audience right before going back to his usual hunch posture. That's also an emotional reaction. He wants to pull back, realizes what he's doing, and then he immediately corrects it. There's absolutely no body language analysis without a detailed reading of the eyes. And being this a very short apology video, we could assume that he was reading on a screen. We can confirm that he's not reading simply because he shows common eye movements to the sides when someone is trying to pick the right words to speak. Just remember that as a general rule of thumb, when someone is looking to their left, they are remembering, and when they are looking to the right, they are in creative mode. Do not confuse creative mode or looking to the right with lying. A person could avert their eyes to the right and just be looking for the right words to convey an idea. This is useful for when you make a question which people have absolutely no reason to think about how to respond. For example, if you ask Dobrik, "Were you inside the room when all this happened?" That's a yes or no question. If at that moment you see their eyes going to the right, it's because they're not remembering, but instead thinking about the implications of their answer. And that's when you begin to stack deception clues.
Decide that they no longer want to be associated, they no longer want to be in the video that I'm putting up. And then I'll take the video down. And then I'll take the video down. And then I'll take the video down.
The rapid blinking matches an emotional reaction, and when he says, "I've made over 600 videos, he assumes a humble attitude, with his chin towards his chest, almost hiding behind the mic.
I've made over 600 videos.
Now, this is a trope, a motive that you can see regularly in apology videos. You have this circumstance that happened, this rape, this infamous video that you had to delete, and you want to paint it like a single event in a whole ocean of other events, so it seems smaller. I always remember my Jada Pinkett and Will Smith Red Table video analysis, where she states that with so many things happening in the world, what she did with August Alsina is nothing of importance. But it's the same principle, trying to present what happened as smaller or less important than it actually is. I noticed that gesture that he does with his hand, like waving in the air, and it's something that he does all the time, so we can just assume it's part of his baseline and not an emotional reaction.
I love being able to make people happy for a living, and that's all that I want to do. All that I want to do.
When he says that all that he wants to do is make people happy with his videos, he looks down. Something that he doesn't do much, neither on this video or in his other videos. In fact, he's used to look upwards all the time, so that's another contradiction to his regular facial expressions. And in fact, the very video that started all this was not about making people happy, but instead to challenge something and showing it to the public.
That being said, consent is something that's super important to me, whether I'm shooting with a friend or shooting with a stranger.
He goes back to the humble and hunched posture when he talks how important is consent to him. He's trying to look smaller, not threatening. That's a behavior that is almost universal. When you're threatening, you try to occupy more of the people's field of vision. When you want to signal that you're not a threat, you're going to hunch a bit instead. There's also displays of single shoulder shrug that is also a signal of emotional distress and contradiction.
With a stranger, I always make sure that whatever the video I'm putting out, I have the approval from that person.
What was he saying at that time? He was assuring that he always got consent from people before publishing, whether if it's friends or strangers. Some Dobrik fans have argued that Laura must actually have given consent to all this, when in fact she only gave consent to the actual publishing of the clips, not the sexual act itself. And regarding that publishing consent, in the message that she sent to have the video taken down, she states that that consent was while she was still drunk. So it couldn't be valid after all, and that's what's more, it's even more difficult to believe that at any other time this man acted in good faith but instead had everything set up.
That there's times where a person can change their mind. That there's times where a person can change their mind.
Notice how when he says a person, he covers his solar plexus as if he feels threatened. Of course, at this moment he's thinking about Laura and all the accusations of rape. He feels threatened by those accusations, and that's why he assumes that defensive posture.
And there's also been moments where I've looked back on videos and I realized that these don't represent me anymore.
There's this moment when he says that he sometimes looks back on videos and realizes that they no longer represent what he stands for. But the problem is that when he says that he looks back, he actually rolls his eyes to his right, when it should be to his left or memory mode. So he's not really remembering videos that didn't represent him. Maybe he deleted those videos for other reasons that are not the ones that he's claiming.
And I'm really sorry. I truly, truly am. And I'm really sorry. I truly, truly am.
Notice how at this point his voice inflection changes dramatically. It's extremely hard for him to say that he's sorry, and it shows. I'm truly sorry, he says, but at the same time he hides his right thumb behind his fingers. Now his two thumbs are looking for protection. His ego is hurt, and that's what is really affecting him. He says that he's really disappointed by some of his friends. And at this point we have barely 40 seconds left in the clip, and even he has said that he's sorry. At the same time, he has not acknowledged his actions, his participation, and his responsibility in what happened. This is a very interesting strategy in public communications. You say you're sorry, but you don't actually connect the statement to what you actually did or participated in. It's like saving face in some way. It's not really an apology, and that's what predates most online apologies. People say I'm sorry, but do not acknowledge what they did and its implications. So that's something that you can use to spot a false apology when someone just says I'm sorry. Just ask them, what are you sorry for? They're gonna answer, for what I did. And then you'll reply, what did you do? It must be specific. It has to come from their mouth. Otherwise, it's just an empty statement. Now, this is the only moment in all the apology that he talks about past mistakes and looks to his left.
You know, the mistakes I made before won't be happening again. You know, the mistakes I made before won't be happening again.
And what does he say about those past mistakes? That they won't be happening again. Notice that this time he doesn't say that he's sorry, and what's more, he ends with a half smile of contempt. As in, this won't be happening again, but we don't know if he means that he will not do this kind of things, or that he'll make sure that he won't be caught again. Now we understand why he left the comments off. He knew that people were not going to buy his supposed apology and were going to say it in all possible ways. Maybe you notice a gesture that I haven't mentioned, and it's his right hand grabbing his left hand, as in supporting it. I've told you a few times that our body's left side is our emotional one. In this case, he's using his right hand to hold his emotional side. He's trying to withhold his true emotions from us. And of course, if this was an apology and he wanted it to look genuine, then he had to hide some emotions from us. That's how we can conclude that those emotions, those real emotions that he's feeling at that moment, are the exact opposite of what an apology should be. And that's something that you should know. Dobrik uploaded this second apology while I was editing this video, so I decided to add this analysis too. In this case, he uploaded it to his main channel and left the comments, likes and dislikes on. That's a much better sign. I think he understood the message from his previous video, that he needed to be more open about this situation. There's one difference though. This video is edited, has jump cuts on it, so it wasn't totally spontaneous.
This week's been pretty hectic. This week's been pretty hectic.
Notice how when he says hectic, he shows subtle covert anger in the way he presses his teeth and the shape of his lips. It's just a split second. Remember that the left side of our faces is more revealing than our right side.
Never done this correctly, and I've never done this respectfully, and my last video is a testament to that.
He also shows signs of being uncomfortable with his first apology. When he mentions it, he does a single shoulder shrug, an emotional response. He either didn't like the apology itself or the backlash from the public.
I'm going to be using words that may trigger some survivors, and that's just so I don't explain anything vaguely, and I can explain every situation. That's just so I don't explain anything vaguely.
I don't explain anything bigly. Well, he states that he's not going into details in this apology either, and you can spot that at the same time he pronounces explain, he shows covert anger. He doesn't really want to explain.
As was reported, the next day I got consent to post the video. Even though I got the consent to post that video, I should have never posted it.
He talks again about the consent that he got from Laura, but I insist, where's the receipt of that consent?
She sent that text because she felt like she had to. Because she felt like she had to.
That lip pressing is a clue that he feels guilty about having pressured her into consenting the video publication. He shows some remorse at that point.
And I want to apologize to her and her friends for ever putting them in an environment that I enabled that made them feel like their safety and values were compromised. I'm so sorry.
Now, here I want to say something about these words. Made them feel. Made them feel is one of the most evil sentences in public statements. Because it's not that he made them feel like their safety was compromised. No, they actively, with premeditation, did harm to her. And you see that still in his second apology, he doesn't acknowledge the situation. And what's more,
I didn't know what was going on in that room. I didn't know what was going on in that room. I didn't know what was going on in that room.
Remember that the whole point of this setup was that they had to actually see Zeglaitis in a threesome, and he published it. He bragged about it and even spoke openly about it afterwards. So saying that he didn't know what was going on in that room is too cynical, given all the signals against him.
And I didn't believe you. And not only did I not believe you, but I made a joke and I didn't believe you. And not only did I not believe you, but I made a joke.
When he says the words, I didn't believe you, he shows a micro-expression of anger on the left side of his face. He shows anger towards those people. He feels really upset about them.
And that breaks my heart, knowing that I was doing all this stuff and I was making all this content while there was people that were still really hurt by what I meant. People that were still really hurt by what I meant. People that were still really hurt by what I meant.
Now, at this point, he begins sobbing, and you can tell that is not real sadness. Because when someone is truly sad, their eyebrows raise and get closer to each other. In his case, he's faking the sadness because his eyebrows only go up but do not get closer together. With real sadness, we would be able to see vertical wrinkles between the eyebrows, but this is not the case.
And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for everybody I've let down. I'm sorry to my family, and I'm sorry to my friends that I've embarrassed, and that this won't happen again.
Now, here, when he apologizes to his family and friends, he has no particular signals. He's being truthful and sincere, and we can be sure that he did not like the way his actions affected both his family and his friends. David Dobrik's case is serious enough given all the allegations, especially the proof that they published themselves about it. But what should be stated and stressed is it will never be enough to talk for less time than a regular weekend song to address a case of non-consensual sex. It's important to notice that predatory behavior always starts very subtle and escalates in a way that the victim usually doesn't realize they are being pushed little by little, especially if there is alcohol or drugs involved. What should be done in all cases is to report these behaviors as soon as you notice that something is off. And usually your intuition is more than enough to tell that being forced verbally at one point is only going to escalate to something physical if you let them get away with it. And this is even more dangerous if we're talking about a group of people that pushes, films, and even publishes what they do online for everyone to see. Did you spot any other clues in this video? Which other cases would you want to have analyzed? Don't forget to share it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my body language analysis and tips. See you next time.